Welcome to A Space to Speak Your Mind,
a radio programme and podcast about mental health and wellbeing.
Made by people with lived experience in association with Cornwall Mind.
We do occasionally cover subjects that some listeners may find distressing.
For more information, help and support, please visit cornwallmind.org.
A Space to Speak Your Mind with Cornwall Mind for better mental health.
Welcome to the March show.
I'm Victoria.
And I'm Chris.
And it's our first time presenting the show.
On the programme today,
we'll be talking about how ADHD affects our lives and how a late diagnosis can affect our lives and give us more understanding about our past.
A Space to Speak Your Mind's Vic will be chatting to us about rejection and what it means to how we view our experiences.
Dee will be explaining what happens at the Veryan Community Café that she runs.
We'll be learning about the Sing for Health group with Gail from Cornwall Mind. Plus, Victoria has a conversation with Aidan from HYP about young people's mental health.
A Space to Speak Your Mind with Cornwall Mind.
This is A Space to Speak Your Mind.
Now let's hear from Chris, talking about ADHD and how it affects our mental health.
A Space to Speak Your Mind.
It's Chris and Victoria here with Alice. You've got an Instagram account.
I do.
Alice in Cornwall.
Yes.
Can you tell us all about that?
Yeah, of course. So I started it about 4 months ago now. It's all based around mental health and neurodivergence. Just kind of share my own story around mental illness and my late diagnoses.
What made you set that up?
So I've always struggled with my mental health, literally always. I never knew that I had ADHD or autism as a kid, and that kind of transferred to a lot of anxiety. Always found that I was just a lot different from everybody that I was with. So I went on to develop depression, anxiety, lots of different mental health things. And it wasn't until I got my diagnoses that it just made sense. I was like, oh, that's why I felt like that. It wasn't these diagnoses at all. And when I was on Instagram, I saw other people sharing their experiences of that, and it just made me feel a lot more validated. And I was like, oh, I would love to do that. I'd love to join that little community and hear from people as well and connect. So that was kind of the idea around it.
This obviously has affected you throughout your life.
Massively.
How was your childhood?
Chaotic is probably the right way to describe it. I was a very quiet child, never wanted to leave my mum's side. I remember loving school, like loving the learning part of it, but as soon as it was break time, I feel a lot of people can relate to this. I just hated the social side of it. I didn't find it fun. I hated when schools like organised games or something. I was like, that's not fun at all. I just want to sit there in the same seat every single day, like just learning. And I was just the little weirdo for doing that, really. And I didn't want to go to parties or sleepovers. And it wasn't until, because I grew up in Birmingham, it wasn't until I moved to Cornwall that it kind of affected my mental health, I would say. Because I was out of my comfort zone. I wasn't around like the same people that I was as I was growing up. So I think as you get older, the symptoms kind of show up a bit differently, probably a bit more obvious.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So people's general idea of ADHD is the kind of naughty 7-year-old boy who can't sit still.
Getting in trouble at school.
Yeah, that's right. And obviously it impacts girls differently.
It does. And that's not to say that it doesn't impact some girls like that. I think it's just more common for it to be a lot more internal in females in general. So with me, it's like a lot of racing thoughts that just literally never stop. But you wouldn't be able to tell from the outside.
Yeah.
I might be fidgeting a bit sometimes, or a lot of the time. But I didn't get in trouble at school or anything. I was very quiet.
We were talking before about masking, and
Yes.
I was kind of thinking about that whole kind of like good girl behaviour. Is that something you sort of felt that you've done your whole life?
If you look at any of my school reports, it's like perfect student. Like we want all the children to be like Alice in class. And that little Alice was so stressed out all the time. Like, that is not a perfect student. She was having to be someone completely different. And I think so many girls are having to act like that.
Have you heard from other people, both in Cornwall and, maybe even nationally or internationally, who are struggling with the same kind of issues and sharing their stories?
Yeah, definitely. I think that's where the Instagram's really helped me in a selfish way, because I just felt very isolated and alone with it. I didn't know anyone in my personal life who had been diagnosed. And a lot of the people I hear from haven't actually been diagnosed, but they suspect it in themselves, which I think is valid enough to self-diagnose because it's such a long waiting list. So yeah, I feel like I've connected with people all over the world, which is amazing. It's been like a great experience for me.
So we talked earlier about your educational experiences and more educational resources.
Yeah, that's been an interesting thing with the Instagram. So I did just start it to share my experience, really, and just kind of normalise talking about those less Instagrammable moments in life, I guess, like just the normal things and how normal things are so hard with neurodivergence. But I shared my own experience with school about how I dropped out early, and I thought it was because of depression, but I look back and it was the autism and ADHD that kind of led to depression. And then people were asking me how I went about getting my degree if I dropped out of school early. So I shared my experience of that and how my mum found a way for me to do like all my qualifications at home. And a lot of parents were asking, like so many kids are going through that and not being able to get into school or like just being completely isolated. So I'm putting together a resource at the moment which hopefully will have all the information that parents need regarding that, which should be ready in a few weeks.
Wow, fantastic.
Fantastic, yeah. So that's going to impact on the home education
education, SEN, like SEN needs what's available in different areas. I'm putting a lot of different links on there. And also just like the legality side of it. So I want parents to actually know their rights when it comes to education for their children. Because local authorities, they don't advertise it. They don't say what they have to do. And my mum didn't have a clue, so she did it all by herself. But when I've looked into it, they didn't give us any support or advice. And so many children are falling through the net because of it. And I just think it's disgusting. I don't think young people deserve that. So, yeah, I'm hoping to just get all the information in one place so parents aren't having to click on those different links to find it.
Yeah, it can be a minefield, can't it, home education?
Yeah. Wild goose chase trying to get all the information. It's crazy.
What led you to getting the diagnosis, and how did you find going about that? What did it mean to you as well? Yeah, so until just before I went for the assessment, I never even suspected neurodivergence. I think I just accepted that mentally I wasn't okay and it was just mental health stuff because it had been my whole life. And it wasn't until I was like in my dream career, doing really well, and then just had a complete mental breakdown. And when I say mental breakdown, I mean a mental breakdown. But it was through that I had a lot of different assessments, and I'd been in hospital and seen like psychiatrists, and it kind of led to suspected ADHD and autism. But obviously the wait on the NHS is crazy long, so I was lucky enough to go private to get it done. And I didn't think it was right at all to start off with, because I had that very stereotypical image in my head of both ADHD and autism, probably just how the media portrays it to everybody. So it took quite a long time just to accept it for myself before I kind of spoke about it to anybody else, because I expected people to be like, what? That's not the case for you. Yeah, but I think that's the case for a lot of people. It's not until they have a complete breakdown or their mental health gets really bad that people start to look at why it could be. I think it needs to be found a lot sooner in children rather than waiting till they're adults struggling with life. Absolutely. It seems like there's a lot of people who are getting diagnosed later on now. And for many of us, we have struggled through school and social stuff, university, work life, the whole thing. And it's terrible that people have struggled for so long.
Yeah, and it's that word, struggle. That's what I always think, like before diagnosis, everything is a struggle. And well, it is after, to be fair, but at least you've got a reason. And I think just you know what the name is for it, so you can research what might actually help me, which Instagram has helped me massively with as well, because other people put their tips on, or how to just manage like daily tasks. It's really helpful.
I think that's one of the things, again, it's seen as a fidgeting naughty boy, 7-year-old climbing the walls in the classroom, and not really recognised as a disability. And it is a disability.
It is a disability. It's a recognised disability.
Yeah.
And with that, there comes a lot of support that legally you have to be able to receive, whether it's financially or just daily living tasks. But once again, it's not advertised. And anything that's invisible, you end up having to fight for yourself to be able to get help. And you're the last person that should be fighting because you're exhausted. They should be there to catch you and be like, this is what we're going to do to help you.
Yeah, there's no one there to kind of advocate for you, is there, in the system?
You get the diagnosis, and it's like, bye.
Yeah, like, thanks.
Yeah, see you when you're in hospital. Like, there's just no help.
So how has ADHD affected your employment?
So my employment history is a complete mess. My CV is massive, but it's not impressive because every job just lasts for like a month or 2 months tops. Yeah, I've never been able to hold down a job, and I've always just felt like I'm lazy or I'm stupid, and that's what other people have felt, and they've been very open to tell me that. And you do really start believing that about yourself. It's one of the reasons I wanted to get a degree, to almost prove that I'm not lazy. But even that, I had to keep taking time out, and it took me so long to get it because I just couldn't stick at it. And yeah, it's ADHD. I get bored so easily, but not just the boredom. I get really overwhelmed really quickly. So my social battery is tiny. And being at work, whether it's in an office or in retail, you are talking to people constantly. And I'm constantly thinking, oh, what are they thinking of me? Am I talking in the right tone? Am I making enough eye contact? And it's all these extra little jobs that you have to do on top of the actual work. And it's just exhausting.
To fit in.
Yeah.
To be normal.
And you can know logically that no one cares. Like, everyone around you, they don't care how you're being. But I can never get that out of my brain. So it's affected my employment massively, which then obviously impacts your financial situation.
What's helped you the most with the whole process and the journey that you've been on? Has there been anyone or anything that's really helped you?
So I think the main thing at the moment is the book that I always talk about on my Instagram, and it's called Unmasked, and it's Ellie Middleton, who is also a late diagnosed ADHD and autistic person. And she's put so much research into the book about employment and how it can present in females especially, and how it's linked to mental health. But she's done it in such an easy to read way. And she's got her own Instagram account as well, Ellie Mids. And her content just validates you so much. She puts educational resources out there. She suggests tips about coping with daily tasks. And I think looking at her content, it just gave me the bravery to kind of speak about my own stuff, which is also a massive thing that helps. Just be open and honest. Some people are not going to accept it and they are going to judge you. Like, that's been a massive learning thing for me. Like, people that you really want to support you, they're just not going to sometimes. But I think as long as you can be honest, you can start the process of unmasking, because you've spent your whole life trying to mask all these things.
I suppose it can be scary being vulnerable, especially in the beginning stages of sharing your story.
Yeah, like, I still mask loads today. Like, every day I'm still masking, but I can kind of catch myself and then think, oh, okay, what could I do that's going to make this situation easier for me? And I'm getting better at, like, asking for places to be more accessible for my needs. And I think that's a massive part of the process.
That's going to help everyone, because the more people that ask, the more it's going to change.
Yeah, I'd say that to anyone out there. If you feel comfortable enough, or you're brave enough to speak out for your needs, it's going to help so many people.
Yeah. So the book you mentioned was
Unmasked by Ellie Middleton.
And on Instagram she is?
She is Ellie Mids on Instagram.
Ellie Mids on Instagram. So your Instagram account began with poetry.
It did. That was one of the main content ideas I had when I set it up. So as soon as I had to leave my job during my mental health breakdown, my main coping mechanism was writing, and it started as just journal entries, but it ended up transforming into poetry, I guess. And I felt really passionate about it and was really proud of how I was coping with things and how I was portraying it. So I really wanted to get that out there a little bit. And I thought that's what the Instagram would kind of be. But the more people followed, the more requests I had around mental health content, and especially around the educational resources. So now I just kind of add a few little poems here and there into the mix. But yeah, that's how it started.
Any plans to get them published?
Well, I do have a whole book waiting, so if anyone's interested.
Watch this space.
Nice little plug.
Before we go, can you just give us your Instagram so everyone can find you?
Yeah, of course. I'm Alice in Cornwall, and it's Alice all lowercase _ in Cornwall.
Super. Thanks,
Fantastic.
Alice.
Thank you, Alice, for coming in.
Thank you so much.
A space to speak your mind with Cornwall Mind.
Now to hear from Victoria, chatting to Aidan from HYP.
Hi there, I'm Victoria and I'm here with Aidan Begbie from HYP in Hayle.
So I'm a youth worker at HYP and I've been working here for nearly 3 years, and I do a mixture of work all with young people aged 11 to 18, sometimes a bit older. Once they're in college we usually sort of phase out the work with them, but it could be one-to-one mentoring. We do group work, we do breakfast club 4 days a week before school, which is mainly used by local Hayle Academy students, and then there'll be an after-school group 3 days a week. There's lots of different things that go on, but it's group work that we're sort of mainly focused on at the minute.
Fantastic, it's keeping you busy.
Yeah, definitely enjoy every minute.
So I understand there's a programme for young men that you are kind of responsible for.
Yeah, so myself and Tom Chapman, who's a senior youth worker here, have set up a programme called the Emotional Resilience Group, and that is specifically for Year 9 boys. We found that Year 9 was kind of a good age to reach out for some of the, potentially younger men who are finding school challenging, maybe finding that they're encountering challenges in bullying, self-esteem, self-confidence, and they're often referred by the school as just some of those younger boys who actually could do with a bit of a boost, or could benefit from interaction with some older male role models. So me and Tom set out a sort of 10-week programme for 6 young men to come and explore different ideas and We do workshops. I don't really recall the workshops. It's sessions based around things that we feel would be important. If I could go back to being year 9, I think I would have loved to have heard some of these messages. So, yeah, I mean, those messages are around positive thinking habits, spotting negative ones, and coping with kind of pressure, especially that male kind of, you don't have to say anything, just be strong, hold it all in. Yeah, we explore that, and we open up conversations in the group. So yeah, we try and foster a space where people can talk and they feel safe, it's confidential, and they're able to open up. Any issues that arise, we can, we hear that, we might have to pass it on if we need to, but often we found that young people do want to talk. They want to talk about stuff that's going on for them. So
that's great, because we always hear about men kind of bottling everything up inside, don't we?
Yeah, I think that is our stereotyped view, and I hope that is changing slowly. And certainly me and Tom have found that it doesn't take long for the young boys to kind of realise that this is a safe place to talk, and they'll share things with their peers, with us, just about life. And it doesn't always have to be a safeguarding concern. It could just be, I find looking at images on social media of other kind of perfect bodies or perfect lifestyles is really difficult, and I find my self-esteem struggle. They might struggle with self-esteem, self-harm, a lot of anxiety, and struggling just to be in school.
It's interesting because we really think about women and young girls talking and thinking about being thin or being pretty, and you've mentioned like young men have these issues as well. They
certainly have shown us that is true for them. A lot of them are, the ones we've worked with, are struggling with those issues. And there is another group that work at HYP, run by our colleagues Hannah and Kelly, which is the Positive Me group, and that works with, again, year 9 girls, and they explore themes around, it started with self-harm, but it is also mental health generally. Those programs kind of mirror each other a little bit, but they are different in other subtle ways as well. But each group has a really positive activity going on. One week we might be in the centre exploring a theme, the next week we might go out for a hill walk or a bit of woodland sort of craft activity, forest school. So yeah, it's a really exciting programme to be on.
Great. Well, what kind of feedback have you got from the young people?
The young people have been really positive. Some of the activities they love, some of them, like yoga, they've found challenging and have said, I'd rather not do that again, but they've given it a go. I think the parents have also come back and said that they've noticed a real change as well. So yeah, the young people have said, really benefited. A few of them have said, we don't want it to stop, we wish we could do this every week. But it is difficult for schools to allow a young person to miss 10 weeks of sessions every Wednesday morning. But potentially that is very challenging for a school. So we're very grateful that the young people can actually come. But when they do come along, they say they'd rather not go back.
Can imagine.
Yeah, I've been really pleased with the response.
That's great. What do you think really are the key issues that young people are facing? Like we hear about mental health being on the rise, we hear about anxiety particularly, and we've obviously touched on body issues. Like what kind of things are really affecting them? Is it like phones and social media and bullying? And
I feel like for a lot of young people going back to school after the COVID lockdowns has been really challenging. Obviously for some more so than others, but the ones we work with who are finding it challenging, there's huge levels of anxiety about being in a peer environment again. And social media definitely is a whole world of emotions, pressures, difficulties, challenges. It's one I try and emphasise with and try and engage with, but as I get older it's hard. Sometimes I feel detached from how much technology the young people are exposed to, but they can come out of that as well. And then in the kind of the real world, there is the same challenges I think they faced 20 years ago in the playground, in the classroom, comments, remarks. Expectations of older siblings have come up, so trying to be as good as older siblings or parents, having to live up to an idea. And I think social media feeds into that as well, having an ideal situation, money, lifestyle, girlfriend, boyfriend. Yeah, I see that they have a lot of pressure, and I think a lot of it filters through the social media. And maybe lacking role models as well, It's easy to find role models online. There are so many influencers and advocates of ideas, but finding one that is potentially going to benefit them and be a positive one may be more challenging when there's no filter. So I hope that me and Tom provide a bit of a positive role model. We do our best to show that we're also still learning in some ways as we grow, but try to engage in that positive idea of looking after ourselves. Physical well-being, mental well-being.
Yeah, I really think that you guys are providing that role model that they're looking for. I think that's really fantastic, especially for young men looking up to men. It's not a usual thing, is it?
Yeah, no, thank you. We've used a couple of videos that we found online where we've seen other male role models modelling good communication, resilience, coming through adversity to then succeed. And they're not always that easy to find. I actually feel like sometimes male role models are positive role models online, not always easy to seek out, and there are quite a few that may describe as not very positive. So
absolutely.
Yeah.
Can you think of anyone actually, like off the top of your head, that you think is providing that for young men?
Well, the video we've used is of Owen Wilson and Rio Ferdinand. It's quite an old video, but it talks about the benefit of Owen Wilson was a rugby captain of the World Cup back in Japan, and he talked about how important it was for the team to communicate and to open up about anxiety. And Rio Ferdinand was sharing that he didn't have that when he was captain of the England squad, and they bottled things up, and it was a much more toxic atmosphere in the changing room, and much more about you don't share things and you're strong. And you can see the kind of relief in Rio Ferdinand's sort of body language when he hears of an alternative, and he hears Owen Wilson talking about how helpful it was for them to open up. So I think sports professionals, they can come across as ultimate superhero kind of physique and characters, and they can have a role to play to say, actually, mental health is really important, and looking after ourselves and communicating is really important as well. Another role model we've used is a skateboarder who loses his eyesight, and his name's gone from my mind, but he goes blind, and his favourite thing to do is to skateboard, and he was really seeking a professional career. But he manages to come through a really dark patch after losing his sight to keep skateboarding. And that video is such a profound example of being resilient that we try and use that as an example. And it'll come back to me, but he's a good one.
God, it's incredible. There are some incredible people out there.
Yeah, and we bring out some motivational quotes. We try not to throw too many in, but Michael Jordan's quote of "I've failed time and time again, and that's why I succeed" is one that we stick up on the wall early on.
Thanks to Aidan from HYP. For further information about the project, go to teamhyp.co.uk, and you can make donations here if you're interested in donating to those guys.
A space to speak your mind with Cornwall Mind.
This was A Space to Speak Your Mind, and now let's hear from Vic talking to Victoria and Dee about rejection.
I'm Victoria, and we're talking about rejection and how that makes us feel. I've read somewhere that the feeling of rejection triggers the same neural pathways that processes physical pain, which is really interesting actually, and it's why we feel it really deeply. There's so many ways that we can feel rejected, and it does have an impact on our mental health. So, Victoria, do you want to tell us about some way that you have felt rejected in the past?
Well, I think we've all experienced rejection of someone that we've been quite keen on. But one area I know I'm very sensitive with is friendships. So fairly recently I contacted some people and asked them to go out and do things, but didn't hear back or heard back that they were busy, and it sort of made me feel quite rejected, to be honest. And that really hurt. Yeah.
I think it's really hard, isn't it? And I guess if you have an expectation in your head that's a positive one and you're met with a negative response, I think that's actually quite hard to adjust to. And I think it's a real tough one for sure.
It's really hard. I think none of us like to be rejected, do we? In any way, shape or form, whether it's a friend or a partner or a job, whatever it is, we like to feel accepted and we like to feel wanted. All of us.
Definitely, yeah. That feeling of being accepted and I suppose understood and championed is really rewarding. And if you're not receiving that, it's hard to come to terms with. What you mentioned about jobs, I've experienced being rejected from jobs. I've had a couple of interviews and then maybe received a brief email saying that you've been unsuccessful. It feels like a real gut punch.
Yeah, one of my friends, he recently got fired from a position, and I just thought, gosh, that must have been a real blow. That really would have hurt. I haven't experienced that myself, but I think something like that is going to be pretty big. It's going to knock your confidence.
That's a really good point, actually. I think it does really affect your confidence. Dee, have you ever experienced feeling your confidence change as a result of rejection?
Yes, several times in my life. When I was younger, I applied for lots and lots of jobs and wasn't successful. And I didn't realise for years that because of some of the things I'd mentioned on the application form, I was being judged, and that made me feel terribly rejected. I'm not quite sure if application forms go into such depth now. Obviously they like to know what you've done in your past, but a lot of the things that happened to me were during my childhood and my early teens, and I got into trouble with the police and stuff like that. Yeah, and I felt terribly rejected. Most of my mates seemed to be able to go and get a job at the click of a finger, but I was always wandering around, and they'd say, "Where are you working?" And I'd say, "Oh, I'm not doing that job anymore, I'm doing another one." And yes, that definitely knocked my confidence.
I suppose a rejection feels quite final, and it feels like it's the end of the conversation, so you can create narratives because of the lack of communication from that. And I suppose for me, I would lean towards more of a negative narrative, they don't want me, I'm not good enough, rather than thinking I've actually achieved something already. And I think because rejection is such a huge part of life, I don't understand why I'm not better at it. And do either of you think that there's anything that we can learn as we go, and sort of maybe tell ourselves as we go when those rejections come, that can help us overcome the negativity?
I think it's easier with job applications. That's just my own personal thing. I think I've been rejected for so many now, and I kind of just see it as, oh well, it wasn't the right fit, it wasn't the right job, it wasn't the right team, whatever. So I just keep going and apply for more. But if it's a friend or a partner, that's the bit that really gets me. So I think it's quite hard with that. I'm not somebody who's gonna go out and just try and find someone new. I know a lot of people do that to kind of boost their confidence. That's not something I do. Kind of sit there and lick my wounds for a bit. So yeah, I find that particularly hard.
I agree with you, actually. From my point of view, I get a great feeling of rejection when my children don't get in touch with me. I have this thing in the back of my head, it's 3 weeks since I heard from my son, or it's a month since I heard from my daughter. And I always seem to be the one doing the chasing. I realise they lead busy lives. I've got 3 grandchildren as well, and it's as if I have to prompt everybody and remind them that I'm still here, which might be an absolute nuisance to them, but I'm wandering around in the meantime feeling that they don't care about me.
That's a really interesting perspective to share, for sure, because I would not be thinking about that with my mum, and I'm not very great at getting in touch with her. So that's really interesting. Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And I think that's really important to think about it from the other way around as well. So what can I do to make that person know that I'm still thinking of them and I'm still reaching out and connecting with them? That's really interesting. Thank you for sharing. My sister the other day said rejection is protection, which made me laugh. But I suppose it's quite a philosophical response to rejection, and I suppose that's something that we could practice more, is what's for you isn't going to pass you by. And like you said, Victoria, it's just not the right fit. It's just not for me. And I guess if we can keep telling ourselves those things every time we're met with rejection, maybe that will reduce the pain slightly.
Yeah, I would hope so. I think it's trying to stay positive. It's quite hard, but I think, yeah, if you can stay positive and just keep going with whatever it is that you're applying for or looking for, it'll be out there somewhere, I would hope.
I think the comment that you just made, Vic, about your sister said rejection is protection, I thoroughly understand that, but I went through that myself when I got divorced on one occasion, and my appearance and my makeup became like armour. I couldn't go anywhere unless I looked a particular way or was dressed in a certain way, because it was the only way I could think of to protect myself. But in the end, my sister said it made me hard. I was becoming bitter, because in a sense I was angry, and I had to sort of relearn not to take it all so personally. I was self-guarding, obviously, and I was protecting myself, but I didn't realise I was doing it like that. But I remember going out one day in my scruffs with no makeup on, and the world didn't end, and I thought, that's okay, I'm obviously getting better.
Nice, yeah, that's interesting. I suppose maybe you have to really harden to cope with that rejection, and then the best place is somewhere in the middle. But it's interesting how we kind of go from those extremes to cope and then find our groove with it, I suppose. Yeah, interesting. So one thing that we have thought about is social media and rejection. So there's always the option to follow or to friend or unfollow or unfriend, and how I guess that's quite a final rejection. So have either of you been in any situation where you've had to make that decision to unfriend someone or unfollow, and how has that felt?
I just did that the other day and I felt terrible. That's the absolute truth. I felt that I was kind of reading a lot of negative comments and I didn't really want to get involved in that and see it anymore. So I took the decision to unfriend, but then I felt so bad. I felt such guilt. I really thought, I'm not actually sure that was what I wanted to do. Maybe there was a better way of handling that. I could have probably unfollowed for a bit, but not actually just press the delete button.
I suppose though it's important to look after you, and if people are sharing content that you don't agree with, that has a negative impact on you, then making that final decision is important to you. And I suppose that's quite a good thing to think about in terms of our feelings of rejection, that maybe that person just needs to move on and we accept that.
Yeah, I think some of the content resonates, some people we're really aligned with, and then some of the content, it doesn't work for us for whatever reason, and we probably shouldn't actually feel guilty about that if that's the case.
I was thinking actually that WhatsApp groups can be tricky in terms of rejection. I teach dance and I also go to yoga and Pilates, and I think there's a new emphasis on everybody in the group joining a WhatsApp group. And somebody said to me the other day, I've been going to the class for 3 weeks and I didn't even know there was a WhatsApp group. And actually, I felt a bit rejected by that. And I think the same with family WhatsApp groups, because my sister's in our family WhatsApp group, but also in her partner's family WhatsApp group. And I'm always thinking, well, she's sharing different content with them and not us. Which is a weird one, isn't it?
So we didn't used to think like that, did we? Because we didn't have social media. And we didn't know what anybody was doing when we weren't with them. I actually think it made it more interesting when you did catch up, because there was such a lot to catch up on. You know, you couldn't stop talking because you hadn't seen them for a week, maybe. But now you've almost got a background when you see somebody of what they have been doing. I'm not quite sure I really like it. I'm confused about it.
I know what you mean, yeah, for sure. FOMO, fear of missing out, is real in this digital age.
Oh gosh, yeah. Absolutely massive. I think we always look at people's lives and think they're having a great time, but in actual fact, is that the reality? Certainly some of the Instagram people that I follow, I think, yeah, it's probably not that good.
Well, it's like people have loads of friends, isn't it? They think they have loads of friends, but are they just superficial?
Absolutely.
You know, if they needed them, would they be able to turn to them?
Yeah, you can't really have 900 friends, realistically.
Ridiculous, isn't it, really?
Yeah, so maybe sometimes we're feeling rejected when the thing that we feel rejected from is superficial and not even real. Thank you so much to Dee and Victoria for our chats on rejection, and speak to you again soon.
A space to speak your mind with Cornwall Mind.
Okay, so this is Chris and Vic in the studio, and we've got Gail from Cornwall Mind with us.
Good afternoon, hello.
Hi Gail, so you run a couple of singing groups that you'd like to tell us about?
I would, but yeah, thank you for inviting me into the studio. I run 2 singing groups for Cornwall Mind. The first one is called Singing for Wellbeing. It's specifically for people who have lost someone close to suicide. And I run a second group which is open to anyone. It's a general mental health singing wellbeing group called Sing for Fun. They both run in Camborne at the Revive Centre, which is on Kerrier Way. A lot of local people tell me that they still remember it being called the Elim Pentecostal Church.
And who are these groups open to? Are they open to everybody?
They are open to everybody. Obviously, the Singing for Wellbeing group is a specific group for people bereaved by suicide, but obviously it's open to anyone that has had that loss. And the Sing for Fun group is literally open to anybody. It's an open group where anybody can come and sing if they feel it would improve their mental health and well-being.
Fantastic. So you've got like all different ages and men and women coming along.
Yes, I have to say I do have more ladies than men.
It's always the way, hey?
Absolutely. I don't think that's an unusual situation. But we do have some men in the Sing for Fun group. And yes, I do have an age range. It's open to anybody over 18. So I do have a range of ages from 20s up to 70s, I think.
Fantastic.
Caters for everyone.
It does.
Could you tell us about the benefits of joining these groups?
Absolutely. Well, singing, there's a lot of research to say how good singing is for us, both on a sort of physiological level and a sort of social connection, feeling good level. I mean, obviously, when we sing, we take deeper breaths than we normally would, which is really good for our lungs, and it helps to protect against viruses and physical things. It's also really good for keeping your voice working, because your voice is a muscle, and like every other muscle, if you use it, you actually enhance it. So I find that when I'm singing and with other people, they'll find that their range, so their top notes and their bottom notes, will gradually stretch as they practice using their voice. But there's also the benefit that when we sing, it releases endorphins, which are chemicals in our brain that actually make us feel better. So it can help us feel more positive about life and just generally happier. So my hope is that if you come to one of my groups, you will actually leave feeling better than when you arrived.
It sounds like it's good for everyone.
It is, yeah. It is. And there's a great social connection too, just being in a group of like-minded people, singing together, sharing together. We have fun. We do have a laugh. We also have a social break in each group, so about halfway through we stop. There's a cafe at Revive, so we go and buy a drink, we all sit down together and have a chat, so people have that chance to make new connections, make new friends. I am under the impression that people leave feeling that they've actually had a positive experience.
I'm absolutely sure they do.
Yeah.
So Gail, share with us a bit about your background.
Well, I actually started out as a physiotherapist. That was when I came out of school. And yeah, I worked in physio for several years. And then for many reasons, mainly my own health and choices that I made in life, I sort of moved away from that. But I've always sung. I've always loved singing, and started sort of singing again with my daughter, and gradually got back into sort of leading singing. I say got back into it, I'd never done it before. And I home educated her, and so started singing with some home educated children, and then the mums and dads, and went on from there. But then I was asked to start doing some Parkinson's work, and that was when I thought, well, actually this ties in with my background in health, that I started out as a physiotherapist, and it's just another way. Singing is another way of supporting people's health, and that's really where I started this journey of becoming what I now call myself, which is a Singing for Health leader. And I went on to do a specific training called Sing to Beat Parkinson's, specifically about singing for Parkinson's. I've gone on to do singing leadership courses, mental health courses, etc. But it's sort of this idea that singing is actually really good for our health. As much as it's a pleasurable, fun experience, it's vital to our health and well-being.
And how did you come to join up with Cornwall Mind?
Well, the group Singing for Wellbeing was initially set up by a lady called Anne Embury, who's the suicide liaison lead in Cornwall, and she got the initial grant funding for the group from the Cornwall Rural Community Council. After that grant funding had finished, we obviously needed another organisation, ideally a charity, to take on the group and apply for funding. So that's really where Cornwall Mind got involved, and spoke to Cornwall Mind, and they said, yeah, this fits with our ethos of running groups for people's mental health and well-being. And so both the groups have now come under that umbrella of Cornwall Mind.
And I understand you've got funding for the next 5 years.
Yeah, both groups have got funding for 5 years. We're about 6 months into that funding, so hopefully, yeah, the groups have got a good long future ahead of them.
That's great news.
Yeah.
So what sort of material do you sing?
Well, I sing a range of stuff. I'm guided a little bit by the people in the group. So if someone specifically requests a song, I will have a look at it. I don't always use it because it really depends if it's if it's appropriate. It depends on the range and all sorts of things. But we sing well-known songs. So certainly one of the songs we've been singing recently is I Can See Clearly Now, written by Johnny Nash. That's obviously got those words, it's going to be a bright, 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 sunshiny day. We also do Sing by the Carpenters, which I think has great words because it's about sing a song, sing out loud, sing out strong, sing of happy, not sad. So it's, again, those words are very positive for singing. And then I use shorter songs that are probably less familiar, and I teach using call and response, which means that you don't have to be able to sing, you don't have to be able to read music, you just come and you listen. You listen to me sing and then you sing back what I've sung to you. So it's like a copying. And I just do it as many times as it takes for people to get the idea of what I'm singing. And we'll sing rounds, which I find are great because I can teach everybody the same tune, and then when we're confident I can split people up into two groups and you just start singing the same piece of music but at a different time, and then you start getting the overlap and you get the harmony, and that can sound great. And it's a really easy way of people learning to start singing in two parts. So yeah, quite a big variety of stuff. Songs from the musicals, hopefully are sort of songs that people will be familiar with.
Sounds great. How long have these groups been running?
The Singing for Wellbeing group started in October 2021. We were actually due to start in 2020, but that was when COVID hit, so obviously everything got put on hold. So yeah, the Singing for Wellbeing group's been running for about 2.5 years now. And then really, I think off the back of that and the success of that group, Cornwall Mind asked me to start a second group, which is the Sing for Fun for general mental health and wellbeing. And that started in August last year. So that's been running for sort of 6-7 months now.
Yeah, so the first one's been running 2.5 years. What have you noticed about the sort of growth of people and the experiences they've had?
Well, we've certainly now got a core group of people that come to, not every session because there's always reasons why people can't make it, but generally I have a core group of probably about 10 people now, and that's sort of built up gradually over that time. I think they enjoy coming and they enjoy the connection with other people who've gone through a similar loss. And I know some of them have said to me that they would have found it difficult to go and sing somewhere else because they were concerned that they were going to burst into tears and that something was going to move them, and that was going to be a difficult situation, whereas actually it's not a difficult situation. If it happens, it's absolutely fine. I have to say it doesn't happen very often, and we do actually have a lot of fun. But if it does happen, they know that everybody there will understand because they've all been through a similar loss. So it's absolutely fine, whatever emotions come up, because singing does trigger emotions, and emotion is fine. I'm comfortable emotion, and if somebody feels a bit upset by a song or just moved, that is okay. That's really okay.
So have you noticed the confidence of individuals really growing over the period of time they've been singing?
I have. That's great. And there's been some really positive things. So my groups only run once a month, which is great. It's very regular and it's an ongoing group. But if you really want to sing, you probably want to sing more than once a month. So some of my singers have actually gone on to find other ways of singing. So they've joined other community singing groups and they're now out there singing in the community on a regular basis, as well as continuing to come to my group. And they've said to me that they've only done that as a result of singing in my group, that they've realised how much better they feel and how positive singing is for them and for their health. And they've then gone on and taken that step to join a sort of a community choir. And I can see their confidence growing because they're now singing in choirs who sing in sort of 4-part harmony, and they're going on to do that, having started just singing in a fairly sort of simple way in the groups that I'm running.
You also mentioned before to us that you've got some groups for Parkinson's?
I do, absolutely. I run 2 groups for people with Parkinson's. One of them is an in-person group which runs down at Townsend. So I run that on the 1st and 3rd Wednesday of each month. And then on the alternate Wednesdays, the 2nd and 4th Wednesdays, I also do a Parkinson's group, but I do it on Zoom so that it's accessible to anybody who lives in Cornwall, because Cornwall is very big geographically and not everybody can get to Townsend. So I have people from Wadebridge, Bodmin, up North Cornwall and East Cornwall, one chap from Lou. So they come and they actually attend the singing group, but we do it on Zoom. So yes, I do 2 Parkinson's groups. Singing is really good for people with Parkinson's. It helps to keep their voice strong. It helps to keep their facial muscles working. It helps their deep breathing. So physiologically as well as mentally, it's very good for them. And if you want to find out more about that, the information for that is on the Parkinson's UK Cornwall website. So again, if you want to know more about that, please do have a look, and my phone number is on there. You can get in touch with me.
I think you've got some feedback that you can share with us, is that right?
I have. I've got a few quotes that some of my singers actually gave me some feedback for a talk that I did recently, and I'm sure they wouldn't mind if I shared it with you. These are singers that sing in my Singing for Wellbeing group, so for people bereaved by suicide. And one of my singers says, "Singing for Wellbeing is one of the few places I feel like I fit in now. Having that shared experience with the others makes this feel like a safe place. For a long time after my bereavement, I did not feel safe. And however awful my singing is, it's never an issue, thanks to Gail's patient and positive attitude." So obviously you can come even if you can't sing, it's fine. Then I've also got another one from one of my other people, and it's only a short one. "The singing definitely is helpful and has brought joy in the darkest times, and we laugh, talk and do not feel as isolated with our loss."
That's moving stuff.
It really is. It really is. And I'm very positive about the fact that the singing and the group as a whole brings them so much support.
So where can people find out about all this singing?
So the 2 groups that we've been talking about are both run by Cornwall Mind. So the way to get into the group is to register your interest with Cornwall Mind. You can do that by going on the Cornwall Mind website, and there is a registration form, and you just click on that and you fill in the form, and it does ask you partway through the form if you know which group you want to be involved with. So at that point you can tick, or if you're not sure, it doesn't matter. They will get in touch with you and ask you what you'd like to do, and you can say, "Oh, I'd like to do some singing," and they will head you in my direction. If you don't go online, you can just ring Cornwall Mind. So you can just ring them and say, "I'd like to do some singing," and they will then send you on to me.
It's fantastic. It's really great what you're doing, Gail.
Thank you. Thank you.
A space to speak your mind with Cornwall Mind.
Hi, we're here with Dee from our team, and she's going to talk to us today about the Veryan Community Café. Hi, Dee.
Hi, Vic. Yes. What would you like to know about the cafe?
Oh, well, just tell us a little bit about it to start.
Okay. I moved into Veryan in 2014, and about 3 years later, I suppose, having finished decorating, I wanted something to do, and I noticed that there wasn't a cafe in the village, so I wasn't quite sure how to go about it, but I noticed that the doctors had a cafe in the hall next to where they have their surgery in Portscatho. So I approached the powers that be and asked if they could help me to become a branch cafe of the Roseland Society Patients Group. And I had to go to quite a lot of meetings and also approach the Veryan Parish Council, because I wanted to hold it in the Veryan Parish Council's hall, village hall. And bit by bit, we achieved what I wanted to do. The reason I wanted to become a branch cafe was so that I could be under the umbrella of the Roseland Society's Patients Group, with their insurance, with their collateral, with their safeguarding. I thought that would be better than running it as just me and my husband running it privately.
Mm-hmm. So you and your husband run it. Who else is involved?
I have 3 volunteers at the moment, 3 lady volunteers, who help, because we now serve lunches. We have quite a lot of helpers who will help down at the end of the day, clear the tables for me and things like that. But we do have a rota. We have a list of for volunteers' names and phone numbers to be put on the rota. That's only happened in the last couple of years, because to start with, we just used to do coffee and tea and biscuits and cake in the mornings. But through the Roseland Society's Patients Group, they were contacted by Volunteer Cornwall, who decided they would like, I'm sure you've heard of them, warm hubs. So they wanted to make sure there was one in every village on the Roseland. And they have given us an amount of funding to run the cafe as a warm hub. So that now means we do morning coffee and lunches. So we start at 10 o'clock and we finish about 2. So my helpers help me with the lunches.
How many people roughly do you cater for?
About 10 to 12 people.
All right, so it's a good time.
Will end up having lunch, but prior to that in the morning, quite a lot of people will drop in for coffee and my homemade cake.
Which pulls them in.
Apparently.
Yeah.
We've yet to taste it.
Yeah, I forgot to bring it.
Next time. Are there any particular groups that are targeted to attend and be invited to your cafe?
Not really. No, it's just individual people that come and meet up and have a chat at the cafe, really. What I do think is lovely is quite a lot of the ladies have lived in the village for a long time and they've met people that only live around the corner from them. And they say that without the cafe, without having plucked up the courage to come, they wouldn't have known that that person existed. So from that point of view, I think it's been good for well-being.
That's fantastic.
As well.
It sounds like it's a real community asset.
Well, I'm hoping it is. I mean, we don't charge anything. Everything that if people want to give a donation, then they can. And what we've started to do with the donations is we're feeding them back into the RSPG, the Roseland Society Patients Group, towards defibrillators. So we've just last month given the Patients Group a cheque for £300 towards a new defibrillator.
Incredible.
And yes, that's what we're doing at the moment.
Where can people get some more information about this?
You can email me. This is where it gets a bit complicated. It's DEE at bob, BOB, ANDDEE.co.uk for further information. I would love eventually to create a website for the cafe, but I'm not very techie minded, so I'm trying to work on that at the moment.
Okay,
so
you need to strong arm somebody into that then.
Yes, I do, yeah.
Is there anything else you'd like to tell us about this?
When we started off, I tried to introduce games like Scrabble. I used to work in a Mind Cafe, ironically, in Buckinghamshire. And they had lots of games and activities on the go at the same time as the cafe. I've tried to introduce this, but people say they just want to talk, which is wonderful.
It's very
I think because the nature of it is the fact that they haven't been seeing anyone, so they come purely to have a chat. Yes, every now and again I organise a quiz, and I do the odd raffle. But you can't make people do what they don't want to do.
Well, it sounds like quite an informal get-together.
Yeah, very. It's lovely. And because I've got all their details, because of GDPR and health and safety and fire regs and everything, of course I've got their dates of birth. So I remember when it's somebody's birthday coming up, and we usually turn that into quite a celebration on that day. And it really means something to some people, because sometimes they wouldn't see anybody or hear from anybody on their birthday. So I'm really pleased about the way that's gone.
Let's hear from some of the people who attend the cafe.
This is Dee Field, who runs the Veryan Community Café, interviewing some of her customers. This is Jenny. And I wondered if you'd like to tell me if having come to the cafe has improved your well-being or health in any way.
Yes, it has. It's lovely to mix with other people. And I have received help from here as well, which was beneficial.
Has coming to the Veryan Community Café helped your well-being in any way, Linda?
Yes, I think it has. I've met new people and learnt about them, and what I do is the same as what they do, and just chatting and in a relaxed way has been lovely. Yes, very good.
Could I just ask you, lady, as clients of the Veryan Community Café, if coming to the cafe has helped your health and well-being in any way?
Yes, definitely, because it's so lovely to meet people and have a chat on a Wednesday morning. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And you, Linda?
Yes, it's very helpful to me because I live on my own and it's just nice to greet other people.
Can I move on to Jane now?
Yeah, it most definitely has. It's nice to see and meet old friends and new friends. So, yeah, it's very nice. It's very good.
Hello, Dave. Has coming to the cafe helped your life in any way?
Oh, amazing. A great meeting place. And the people that run it are lovely and extremely well done, you know? And we need more people to come along, don't we? But you do the best you can with promoting it, I know. So thank you.
So lots of positive responses there, Dee, especially from Jenny.
Yeah, she was very chirpy, she is. We actually call her Her Majesty because she's always first and she's makes us laugh. And we had a mug that with Her Majesty on that my children gave me, but I took it to the cafe and gave it to Jenny because I said we must bow when you walk in, Jenny.
It sounds so personal and very community and heart-led. It's just beautiful to hear about it. Thanks so much, Dee.
Yeah, I'm very pleased with it. If I have somebody and they want to tell me something privately or confide in me, I obviously have to be very careful how I deal with that. But I have got a counselling background. So what I would do about that is take someone into another room and try and find out what sort of problem it was, if they wanted to tell me. If not, I refer them back to the patients group, to a particular link that I've got, so that they could go through the right channels and get the right support.
Do you have to adhere to any rules or systems with the cafe?
Yes, we do. It was quite strange to me that I'd been running it for 7 years before I saw anybody from the environmental health or anybody like that. I thought they just about found Veryan on the map. But we've just recently been visited, and prior to that I was very well aware of what I should and shouldn't be doing. Bearing in mind it's a village hall kitchen, it's a community, lots of different people use this kitchen. But I was absolutely aware of what I needed to do before I started, like hand washing. I always wear an apron, I always tie my hair back. I do all the things that I should have done, and I keep my food hygiene certificate live, and I've just renewed it. And we had a lady from environmental health, and I'm pleased to say that we got a 5-star rating.
Fantastic. Wow. Well done.
Last week. So
Congratulations.
I was very chuffed about that.
Were there any barriers to you opening this cafe? And before you answer, have you had any support?
There were some barriers. For one reason in particular, which I found quite confusing, was the powers that be, the patients group. Their bone of contention was that there wasn't a surgery in Veryan. But like I pointed out to them, there's an awful lot of patients, and they seem to take that on board and understand that people can walk to it. They're not reliant on lifts or anything like that, so it makes it more accessible. But I also had to approach the local village council and almost do a feasibility study before they let me, go forward with it. Reason being, it had been tried before and it fell flat on its face. But I did show them my CV. I used to have a caravan park, and I've done a lot of catering. And I worked with special needs in catering at my last job. And I just tried to make them believe in me. Could they give me a trial if it didn't work? After the 3 months, we started in September. And I said, if it isn't successful and nobody comes by December, we'll forget it. But we were inundated. We had 36 people turn up.
Fantastic.
Within the first couple of weeks. Well, once a fortnight it was then. So we got there in the end.
Yeah. And have you had any support?
I have had some support. The patients group, initially, they paid my rent. I rent the village hall from the Veryan Parish Council. So there's a charge. But I realised that the RSPG are a charity. So when I first got my bills from the parish council, they were full price. But I challenged that because the RSPG is a charity and I'm under their umbrella. Yeah. Could they charge me a charity rent as well? And they agreed.
Fantastic.
So we pay at the charity rate now.
Has anyone come to you, Dee, to see about setting up a cafe close to them?
Yes, I've had a lady from Probus come, and she turned up on the first day, which was a bit difficult because I had an awful lot on my plate on the first day, to know how to run a cafe and take my lead. So I invited her back on another occasion and had a chat, and I told her I'm always there at the end of the phone and she can refer back to me at any time. Not vast amounts of people.
But I guess some people out there listening to this might sort of be inspired by what you've told us today.
I sincerely hope so. I think if you don't ask, you don't get. And not to be discouraged if you don't get, 50 people. But I mean, I've got regulars now, and I've got a core group of people. On that note, actually, I do wish I could get more, because I know there are a lot of people in the village that live on their own. But as I say, come and see us. We don't bite.
Is there anyone in particular that helps you, Dee, with the cafe?
I wouldn't be able to do it without my darling husband, because he goes down to the hall at 7:30 in the morning and puts the heating on and gets all the tables and chairs ready and all the cups and saucers ready and switches all the boilers on. So I would absolutely be lost without Bob. He's wonderful.
A space to speak your mind with Cornwall Mind.
That's all for this month's show.
Thanks for listening, and we look forward to you joining us for the April show.
If you missed anything on today's show, you can download the podcast right now on Apple, Spotify and Amazon Podcasts.
For support and more information for better mental health, visit cornwallmind.org or call the Mind Helpline during office hours on 0300 123 3393.
There is a 24/7 NHS local urgent mental health response phone line. It's free to access by anyone, any age, on 0800 038 5300.
And don't forget, you can call the Samaritans anytime for free on 116 123.
If you'd like to be a part of the show, you can get in contact. Just email aspacetospeakyourmind@gmail.com.
And you can also find out more about the show if you follow Cornwall Mind on Facebook or Instagram, or on their website, cornwallmind.org.